Hey everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson, and I am back with a new episode of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And if you are a part of the Right to Win Writers Group, you're probably wondering, wow, does this woman ever sleep? Because I know you were a part of the masterclass that we did. We did the 5-day masterclass talking about fiction writing. And we were on from Wednesday all the way up to yesterday. And I'm back today with another episode of Horizons with Meet the World Image Solutions. And I am so excited because I'm meeting a new friend tonight. Her name is Dr. Franceska Jones. She is a consulting extraordinaire because when I read her bio, that was all I could say was extraordinaire because she does it all. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to her so she can tell you a bit about what she does, and then we're going to be jumping into her books.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Dr. Franceska Jones, like she said, y'all can call me Dr. J.
Okay, Dr. J. Thank you for being on the show, by the way.
No problem. No, but honestly, I'm really a problem solver. So whether it's working with nonprofit organizations or working with everyday people, I'm there to help you solve your issues. So in a more broad capacity, I do nonprofit consulting. I typically work with a lot of athletes and public figures with their foundations and nonprofits. I also do personal and professional development and training.
Nice.
And then I do education consulting.
Okay. Are there certain people who you specialize in helping? Like, for instance, is it are you frozen? Dr. J. Okay, I think she's gonna come back in a second. But what I was just asking Dr. Francesca or Dr. J, as she likes to be called, is if she specializes in helping certain industries, basically. And I'm not sure what happened to Dr. J, so I hope she will be back in a minute. See, these things always happen on live shows, but it's all good. We're going to resolve this issue. This is what we do in the Horizons Author Lounge. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give her a call and make sure that it wasn't something on her end. So, bear with me, people. Okay, so she just logged off, so I'm sure she'll be right back on. We always have these types of issues because whenever you're doing live shows, that is the sometimes that's the issue that you have for virtual shows. But we're going to resolve this. But while she's getting logged back on, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about Dr. J. She wants to talk about her books and her Empower Her program, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about because first of all, I love the title, Empower Her. And then here she is.
Hey.
I'm not sure what happened, but I'm glad that we're back.
All right. Well, I'm not sure where we left off at.
Well, I was just asking you because you talked about your consulting, and I was asking if there was a certain industry that you specialize in, or do you work with certain people? Like, for instance, do you work with students? Do you work with nonprofit organizations, small businesses? What is your niche, so to speak?
So, really, sports philanthropy. So, I work with a lot of professional athletes, a lot of which, they have made it into their careers. They have, a pot of money and a vision for how they want to help the community. And so, I help them figure that out, bring forth their dreams of how they want to, support the community. So, usually, it's athletes.
That's awesome because you're right there. When people have money, especially our people, we get something and we want to be able to help the community. You see a lot of actors, musicians, athletes who they wind up getting nonprofits because they want to be able to give back. And even some people who don't have the money that athletes have still are looking for ways to give back.
Exactly.
So what inspired you to get into this industry?
You know what? I saw what the power of nonprofit organizations were as a student growing up in Cleveland. So I was in a lot of enrichment programs, youth development programs that didn't exist, when I got older. And so I wanted to know, how can I help these organizations still exist? Like, what happened to them? So I went and got my master's in nonprofit administration because I was interested in how to lead these organizations, how to make money for these organizations, how to fundraise and things like that. So that's kind of how that happened. I really wanted to pay homage to, I wouldn't be where I was if it wasn't for certain organizations.
Right.
And I feel like, those who come after me deserve those same type of organizations to still be in play.
Now, how do you get? And you don't have to go into your whole business plan or anything like that, but you were inspired to do this. But then, how do you start reaching out to these clients? And say, "Hey, I know you don't know me, but I want to help you with your philanthropy."
Right. No, honestly, it's about taking bold and imperfect action. And so for me, I had to use what was at my disposal. So I've been blessed to be around sports my entire life. My family is a big sports family. And so utilizing my knowledge base with the different sports and my network, that was really where I started first. I really had to take an audit of what I had at my disposal and then just go ahead and take that imperfect action.
And I love that imperfect action, because I think sometimes and I've said this to somebody before, we try to wait for everything to be perfect. We wait for the stars to align before we jump. And sometimes you have to jump and not be afraid to make mistakes.
Yes.
And then learn from, if you did make a mistake, learn from that and do better the next time. And but I think, like I said, we often feel like we have to be perfect. We have something to prove, and we're afraid of actually being imperfect.
I mean, that's living. All right. Jump off the cliff. Like I tell people, as an entrepreneur, I jump off a cliff every day and hope I don't die.
Yes.
Right. So, that's the day in the life of an entrepreneur. Honestly, we get paralyzed by trying to be perfect. And perfect is an illusion. So, I mean, honest to God, like you be sitting here waiting around to be perfect, you're gonna waste your entire life away.
Yes. Absolutely. And then by the time you think it's perfect, it's not perfect anymore because you weren't in the industry, so you missed some things.
Right. Passed you by.
Exactly. So tell me about the Empower Her program.
So Empower Her was something. So I not only have Jones Consulting Firm, but I also have another business with my husband, which is a tax preparation service. I'm a professor. And so people see me doing like a whole bunch of different things. And so people reach out, mainly women, asking, well, how are you getting all this done? Like, how are you, having all these businesses, a wife, a mother, drinking water and combing your hair at the same time? Like, they want to know, like, how am I not over here looking like a house coat and a cigarette? They want to know. So I wanted to bring ladies together in a group coaching setting where I can give my practical resources of things that work for me. And so that I can share that knowledge and give it back.
Well, that's wonderful. So so it's a group coaching program, or is it I guess kind of a mentoring program, so to speak?
So it's a group coaching program. It's 8 weeks. We do exercises together in a group, and I meet with ladies individually to kind of understand their pain points so that I can help hold them accountable throughout the journey. So that's what, it really consists of, is having that group. We're here together. This is normal. We can make it together. And then also that one-on-one, really kind of teasing out, those pain points.
Now, do you find yourself getting kind of deep down and dirty? Because I know the first couple of weeks, people are probably trying to feel you out, wondering if they can trust you, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I can trust Dr. J." Yeah. So maybe I can go ahead and get deeper now.
Yeah, it takes a little bit, and I have to put myself in their shoes. Like, I wait for people to feel comfortable, but I do press buttons that I will. I will do that because I will see something. Typically, the Lord has given me discernment and foresight. So I'm able to read and help develop people in a way where they may not see it. That's their blind spot. So I do push a smidge.
Love it, love it. So how can somebody get to be a part of that?
You can just go right onto my website, thejonesconsultingfirm.com.
Mhm.
And you can just click on Empower Her. It is a brief application that you would fill out, and then I would, review it and accept you into the program.
Okay, well, the jonesconsultingfirm.com, it is in the chat as well as on the screen. So you have the information right there. Make sure you reach out. Now, I noticed that when I do go to your website, there is an opportunity to download, first of all, your ebook.
Yep.
So
Yep.
can we talk a little bit about the ebook?
Yeah, so I have an ebook. So it kind of along those same lines, like people reaching out again, mainly women, about
Mhm.
how do I find some peace, child. They just want to know how not to be over here losing their hair and turning gray. And I was like, I understand.
I know that one. I mean, I might be wearing braids, but I still worry about my hair turning gray from
Right.
worry.
So Harmony Within is really a guide of the practical. I want to be practical. Most of the things that I do, I have a doctorate and I could be all philosophical and theoretical, but I want to be practical when I speak to people.
Yes.
And so that's what you find in that. You find, hey, these are the things that you need to do for your mental health, fitness, emotional health, a practical framework on creating a balance plan. So how you find balance.
So that sounds like a book that's great for somebody who is always busy, who never seems to have enough hours in the day, who seems like they're being pulled in a bunch of different directions, and their own mental well being and their own physical well being often takes a back burner.
Yes, yes, and it's definitely for that busy woman. I kind of gave it to the ladies this time. I'll leave it to my husband to do something for the men folk. Um, I know they
So
go
does
through
he
that.
have his own program for the men?
He's in the works of doing that now because again,
Wow.
people reach out to him and ask
Yeah.
him like, "Bro, how are you getting these things done?" And still looking like you're enjoying your life. So that's coming soon. But again, for the ladies, if you're busy, if you find it hard to find that work-life balance or understanding what your priorities are,
Yes.
that's what the book is really for. Everything can't be a priority. Everything can't be important. There has to be a hierarchy of things that deserve your attention.
Well, I can say just from my own point of view, well, I think a lot of us know that. We know that everything can't be a priority, but then how do we choose what's going to be the priority that day? What can take a back burner?
Mhm.
Or how can I let one of these balls go when I'm juggling all of these balls and
Mhm.
I can't tell which ones are plastic and which ones are glass?
No, I mean, honestly, that's sitting back and being intentional. Sitting
Yeah.
back and taking an audit of your life. Again, we can be juggling 5 balls. You probably only need 2. You know what I'm saying?
I like that.
Everything else can be set down. You know what I'm saying? So, that's that personalized balance plan and really looking at taking some time away and auditing your life and saying, these are my priorities right now. And everything that comes after that, you do a litmus test. Does
Yes.
that go with my physical health? I said, I'm worried about my physical health right now. Does that go with my family? Does that go with this right now? If it doesn't, then you politely, kindly say no.
All right. I like it. So now you have another book.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so let's talk about the second book. And this one was just recently released. Is that correct?
Yep. Officially, I'm having a book launch September the 9th. So it
Wonderful.
is ready for a pre-order. But yeah, it is Conquering Graduate School.
And
Uh,
you did say part of your consulting has to do with the education field. So this fits right into your niche.
It does. It does. So Conquering Graduate School is a practical guide, and I went specifically towards Black scholars. A lot of people wanted me not to pigeonhole the book and it be specifically for African American, but this is for my community. And so, yes, it's coming out September the 9th. And yep, that's my wonderful husband.
Your husband is like on it, doggone it. I love it.
But yeah, so it's a practical
This comment.
guide. Yes, maybe yes, you'll get an autograph. Acting a fool. Okay, so no, but honestly, it's a book that it's birthed out of my own journey. I was a first generation graduate student. Now I wasn't a first generation college student in terms of undergrad, and but I was for my master's and my doctorate, and I felt it.
Yes,
I felt the lack of social capital. And so by me being a college professor, I also was a director of TRIO Student Support Services. So I've worked in student support services in the undergraduate level. I realized what I was missing as a student. And so I figured I might not be the only one in that circumstance. And so the Lord told me, well, take some notes about what you're going through and what the outcome and the result were. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be obedient and do that. And then, the Lord was like, okay, that's a book. I was like, oh, Lord. I was like, I'm not an author.
This is probably a deeper undertaking or a bigger undertaking than your first book was.
Yes. So this was years in the making. And not years because, it's just that lengthy of a book, but years in the making of me being confident in writing a book for myself of this magnitude. So I put it down many a time.
Yeah. Then what was it that motivated you to keep picking it up? Because sometimes we put our book down and then we may not touch it for another year or two.
That was me.
That was you.
Me. That was me. I got tired of not being part of the solution. And so again, being a professor, being part of student support services and then doing research. So, when you go into your doctorate and whatnot, you do your research and start writing articles. And I'm like, I got to be a part of the solution. And I have to let people know what I've learned.
All right. So what did you do? In order to write a book like this, did you visit colleges or visit with grad students?
Yeah, so I've definitely kind of took stake in having conversations with other African American students and those who are not African American students. So yeah, I did take some time to talk and see, am I seeing this the same way as you're seeing this? I talked to a lot of buddies, coworkers, people that were in the same circumstance as me. I talked to some professors. I talked to some administrators of institutions, both predominantly white institutions and historically Black colleges and universities.
Okay, so in different parts of the country.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that's good because it gave you a different perspective. Did you find that some students whom you've talked with may have had a different experience or a different perspective than somebody who lived in a different part of the country?
You know what? Yes. And that kind of goes back to an article that I wrote on first generation college students. A lot of time we like to overgeneralize that we all need the same thing.
Right.
We don't all need the same thing and we don't all have the same pain points. So no, yeah. So I did find some variations. Yes, he was a case study as well.
You weren't supposed to tell that, Mr. Rudolph.
Oh, have mercy. No, but yeah, it was. So when I did that initial article, and that's on the Jones Consulting Firm website as well. You could go and check that out. Because I looked at urban, I looked at rural, I looked at, those that live in Appalachia and things like that, and so we all have different needs. So again, different people in different places in the United States have different needs. Some people that are graduate students live on Native American reservations, and so their needs are different than those who live
Mhm.
in a major metropolitan area or had that perspective background. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, you you have you mentioned your launch, your book launch on September 9th, and
Mhm.
it's going to be in the Cleveland area. So is that's where you're located in Cleveland?
Yep, I'm located in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm having a book launch event. It's at this really cool venue called Limelight. It's like a rooftop, indoor, outdoor. It's gonna look
Oh,
real
that
cool.
sounds nice.
It's
Oh, I have to come
jazzy.
out to Cleveland.
Come on now. Come on now. It's jazzy. It's jazzy. So I have a wonderful marketing agency and publishing company, and they found this great venue. So I'm excited. That's September the 9th, 5 to 7. So if you're anywhere near or even feel like coming up here, let me know. Holla at me. I'll treat you real nice.
Okay, well, your husband is on it. He must be your marketing agency
No,
because
unofficial. Yeah. No,
okay, Mr. Jones wants to drop the flyer for the group. Do you have the flyer that you can message me?
I sure can.
Okay. Yeah. If you go ahead and maybe slip that into my email or messenger. How did I meet you on Instagram?
It was on Instagram.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I met you on Instagram. But
Yeah.
so whatever way is easier for you, if you want to slip me the flyer, I'll go ahead and put it on the screen for you.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna slip that to you right now. And currently, if anybody's following me on Instagram, I'm doing a giveaway of the book as well.
Okay, so I'm thinking that what we should do is put the link to your Instagram in the chat so people can more easily follow you, and that way they can get their special gift.
Sounds like a plan to
See,
me.
this is what we do in the Horizons Author Lounge. We want to make sure that we are supporting all of the wonderful authors who come on our show.
I absolutely love it.
So yeah, I'm so while I'm looking for your link, where can people find your book?
So again, you can go ahead to the Jones Consulting Firm and then click under resources. You'll be able to see Harmony Within, the ebook, which is totally free. And then underneath that, you'll see Conquering Graduate School, and that'll take you directly to the site.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I got your link and I have put it into the comments for anybody who wants to follow Dr. Jones, Dr. J, and get their special gift. And then you can also go to her website, which is in the chat. If you want to get information on the book or at least order the book, you can get the free book. The ebook is free, correct?
Yeah, the ebook is free.
So your ebook is free, but that doesn't mean that the second book is, y'all. Support this author.
No, the second book is not free. That was like a baby being birthed. Okay. So yeah, there's a little fee with that one. But yeah,
Yeah.
again, if you're on my Instagram having a good old giveaway, so you'll be able to see that post on there.
Okay, so I'm gonna show everybody the cover in case you weren't able to see it when she held it up. It is actually very, very nice. I love it.
Thank you.
There it is.
Yep, that's it. Good old
Conquering
conquering
Graduate School, a practical guide for African American students. And I do feel your pain when you mentioned being the first graduate student in your family. I'm the first doctoral graduate in my family as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that, and I know even myself, I did not appreciate how much
Mm-hmm.
time
Yes.
working on your doctorate will take from you and how much of a time commitment it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot, and there were some times where I was asking myself,
Yes.
Why am I doing this? Why am I going through this? This is an optional degree. I already have a job. Why am I doing this to myself? But I'm so glad that I stuck with it. And even though my family had not gone through the doctoral program, the fact that they were supportive enough, like
Yes.
for instance, I was a single parent at the time, and
Mhm.
my daughter would cook dinner for us sometimes because she knew that I was busy trying to write this doggone paper.
Yeah.
You know, so I
Yeah.
think people need to realize that you have to have
Mhm.
support. You have to have your family support, or else it's going to be very difficult to get through this. It's already going to be times when you're going to want to give up. There's
Yes.
going to be times when you're wondering why you're doing this. There are going to
Mhm.
be times when there were times when I worked all night and I had just enough time to take a shower and go to work the next morning.
Mhm.
Uh, so you know
Mhm.
what I'm saying. But
Mhm.
so you go through these things,
Yes.
but it pays off so well in the end. So just stick with it.
It does, and the support system is everything. I talk very specifically to the community at the end of my book on ways that you can support Black scholars. Just really, I talk to institutions. I talk to nonprofits. It is not just something nice to do. It is our responsibility to
Yeah.
support not just the undergraduate attainment of success for Black students, but graduate school.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you for doing this. I think this is a great guide for anybody going through this, and not just the young folks. We're talking like older professionals as well, because and I haven't checked the numbers, but I tend to believe a lot of the people who are going through the doctoral program are usually people who already have jobs. They
Mhm.
probably already have families. So
Mhm.
they're going through a lot to be able to go right back in
Yes.
and to pursue another degree.
It is. There are some statistics on, and depending on the major focus that you're in, you definitely see a lot of, older, more established individuals. But one thing I will point out is like this book is not just for someone going into graduate school, but again, it's that social collateral in our community to have sitting around. It is for that auntie who may not have gotten a master's or a doctorate, but their
Yes.
niece is killing it and they want to be able to support on a whole nother level. It's one thing to be like, girl, you hanging in there, you doing all right. Let me make you a plate, but it's a whole nother thing, right? It's a whole nother thing for you to say, Dr. J was saying like during this process, you could be going through this. You need to be talking to your professors, and this is how
Hmm.
just being able to pick it up and use it when necessary.
Right. And your husband mentioned networking. I'm going to tell you that I probably owe my degree to a really good friend of mine, Dr. Henry Williams. And the reason why is because I was in the process of moving. I started the process when I was living in Georgia. And
Mm.
then I moved overseas, not just moved to another state, I moved to Belgium. And
Wow.
then in the process of finishing my dissertation, I retired from the army and moved back to the United States. And by then I was tired. And I was so tired of every time I sent in my paper,
Mhm.
my subject matter expert had something I needed to fix. And
Yes.
I was like, I just don't want to do this anymore. And it was Dr. Williams, who at the time was going through his own doctoral program, who said, let's just work together and get this finished. And we called each other and motivated each other, and that was the way we got through it. So I
Yeah.
say all of that to say is make sure you have a friend going through this program. It may not be the same program, they could be going through something different, but when you have somebody who understands what you're going through, it
Yeah.
just makes the process that much easier.
It really does. It really does. I loved, my master's degree, we weren't kind of in a cohort, but my doctorate degree, it was kind of in a cohort fashion. And until this day, me and I'm going to shout her out, Karen, that is my cohort number 51, Morgan State Community College, the doctoral program. But
Yes.
we willed each other through the happy times and the sorrows and the girl I can't take this no more to the
Yes.
so and so it's definitely I love the cohort experience, but even if you're not my master's degree program, start networking. You got to start putting yourself out there. so that you can conquer what you got to do.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. J, thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your insight. If you can just remind everybody how they can reach out to you. Like I said, your links are in the chat already. So they can reach out to you that way. But just remind everybody about the book, which is still on the screen, and how they can reach out to you or even be a part of your Empower Her program.
Yes, most definitely. Honestly, just reach out to me either through the website, which is the jonesconsultingfirm.com. Send me a quick message there. You can also email me, and I guess I can hop that in there as well in the chat. You can email me. Follow me on socials. I'm very cool. Like I'm not one of those people that aren't gonna message you back. So you can slide in the DMs on a respectful note.
Yes,
Um,
on a respectful note, okay? I know you're cute, but this is this is respectful now.
on a respectful note, you can slide in the DM. So that's at Franceska Jones on Instagram. Feel free to follow back. The link for the book is also in the chat. So I just look forward to really just taking part and talking to people and help being that problem solver for you.
Well, thank you so much. Well, you enjoy the rest of your evening. Hopefully, you'll be able to watch the rest of the show because we're about to interview Mr. Marc Lacy, and he is always a fun conversation. So you'll enjoy it.
Will do. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you. You have a great night.
All right. Take care.
Bye bye. Okay, so that was Dr. Franceska Jones, also known as Dr. J. So now we are about to change course just a little bit, and we're going to talk to a man who had the nerve to release 8 books at one time. And I'm gonna have to talk to him about this one. Hello, Mr. Marc Lacy.
Greetings. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you tonight?
Doing well, thanks. Doing well.
That is good. It's been forever since we've seen each other. I don't even know if you remember how we met, but we met. Um, I think we were both kind of new in the business,
Right.
and we had both gone to New York. We met each other in New York at, I believe it was the Queens Book Fair, and I was in one spot, you were in the other, and then you had this big poster of yourself with this white shirt on, and you had your hand on your chest like this. I was like, who is this man with this big old picture of himself? And I got to know you. We've been buddies ever since.
Yeah, that was it must have been like March or April of 2005.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Very good. Very good.
time has definitely flown, no doubt.
Absolutely. And you've been doing a lot. So you're not only a poet. I mean, when I met you when you had a poetry book.
Right.
But you're not only a poet, but you are a writer. You do a lot of speaking engagements.
Right.
And I didn't know that you were a DJ as well.
Yeah, been a DJ for going on 3 decades.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you were a DJ when I met you.
Correct.
Okay. So tell us, let's start with first of all your journey, because you've done a lot, with music and how you incorporate music into your books, which I think is a really awesome niche. But if you can talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into the Whiskey Trilogy.
Okay, so I mean, music has always been a first love of mine, and I knew at some point in my life that I was going to be a DJ for somebody at some point. Number one, we had too many musical influences around the house. Mother a piano player, mom and dad had this huge record collection, 45s and 33s, and plus my siblings were heavily into music. And so we had vinyl and tapes all over the house.
Yes.
And so we were introduced to music at a very, very early age. And I was, as a kid, I used to watch my dad listen to, artists that grown-ups would listen to back in the day. And I loved that music more than he did. So it was just something about that vinyl going round and round on that turntable. and I knew at some point that I would become a DJ. And I started doing what DJs do long before I introduced myself as a professional DJ. You know, I had the equipment, the mixers, the turntables, the speakers, and the amplifiers. And once I got to a comfortable point, then I introduced myself as DJ Marc Lacy. But I'll say that to say, as far as the impact on my literary career, honestly, outside of being the executive producer of my spoken word CDs, the music itself was more or less an icing on the cake type deal when it came to like my fiction and my poetry. I never looked at music as a as forming a mesh point or whatever with my ability to write. I just so happen to be a DJ who happens to do poetry and spoken word and write fiction. But over the years, I had to evolve the way I identified myself as a professional, right? Used
Yes.
to be poet, author Marc Lacy. And then I thought, you know, I'm doing all of these things. I'm not trying to do them. I've been doing them. So speaker, writer, producer, you know, it all has to do with writing, and it all has to do with production in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So might as well go with that moniker, and I'm not lying.
Well, it works for you, and I've heard your music, and I enjoy it. I like your style of what you're doing. I love how you incorporate your poetry into your music. So I love your style of how you present your writing, and I think everybody has to have a way that they are known for, and that's what you're known for.
Right.
So you had I don't know if you had taken a break or if maybe if you were just writing all of these books, but you came back and you just said 8 books.
Right, right. So I was not known to release publications in a rapid fire like fashion.
Mhm.
You know, the first national release, The Looking Heart, 2004, followed up by Rock and Fire Love Poetry from the Core, 2007. Then 2010, I collabed with Ashanta Faye Howard to release what I call, in my opinion, my crossover work, Wretched Saints,
Mm.
short stories. And so that was my public introduction, or I was introducing myself to the public as a fiction writer, but it was a spoon feeding type deal because again, it was flash fiction.
Right.
And then now all the while I was doing, you know, my spoken word CDs. And then in 2015, that is when I introduced that's when I published the first leg of the Whiskey House trilogy, Curse of the Whiskey House. Followed that up in 2018 with Viral Transgressions, which is the second leg. And then thus 2023 is the closeout of the trilogy with The Ghost of Ace Honeycutt, along with the release of the Poetic Vault series.
So yeah, you've been busy.
Yeah.
Well, I've read some of the had an error real quick. I have read some of the Whiskey House trilogy, and I like it's a different style of like I said, a different style of writing because it's not romance, it's not exactly crime. I mean, in certain ways, would you say it's kind of almost paranormal?
Okay. Well, it is, I call it a fiction thriller with a hint of paranormal.
Okay.
And I have to flash back to the point of when, what was that series on Showtime that had, it was based on vampires and you had like several black characters.
Oh, I know what you're talking
True,
about. I
I
can't
think it
think of
was
the
True
name.
Blood. And
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
don't even know if it was on Showtime or HBO. I can't
Mhm.
remember. But I remember I was with the what was that tour that I was on? And some people are going to be mad at me because I'm just having a mind freeze right now. But in and around the time of True Blood, and it's going to come back to me. The title of the tour is going to come back to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a compilation of it was an anthology orchestrated by publisher and author Elisa Gabrielle, Soul of a Man. Okay. So I participated in all of the Soul of the Man publications. You know, I've actually participated in several anthologies, of which Soul of a Man is one of the more popular ones.
Yeah, I remember Soul of a Man.
And so I remember we had a stop in the Stonecrest Mall in Atlanta. I think it was a Books A Million bookstore. This was like maybe 2008. And people heard that the authors were going to be in there, but they kept coming up to the table asking me, "Hey, did you see that book that was based on True Blood?" And it was several people asking about that. And I was like, wow, this paranormal thing is really, really catching on. Because typically, I'm just going to go ahead and be honest. I just was not tracking a time in which Black folks were attracted to paranormal publications and productions. And so it just so happened that True Blood and productions similar to that, I mean, they just caught on to a craze. And I said that once I started writing my warm-up flash fiction to the Whiskey House trilogy, I said, I've got to add a hint of paranormal elements or paranormality, just a smidgen, just to keep people on their toes. And I have a second narrator in the book, not trying to give the game away. And his name is Rufus. And for those who are familiar with the TV show from back in the 70s and 80s called Dukes of Hazzard,
yes,
Rufus kind of reminds you of the narrator, who actually happened to be the country music artist Waylon Jennings, by the way.
Oh,
Rufus kind of reminds you of that narrator during that show. You don't ever see him,
right?
But he sees everything. He sees everything. He knows what's going on. And sometimes he'll just throw something out there just to see how people are going to react. But Rufus is always knowing what's going on. And he has an inkling as to what can potentially take place in the near future.
I like that. I actually hosted a 5-day masterclass on fiction writing this past week. And we had, on one of the days, we talked about narration and dialogue. And we talked about the third person omniscient. And as you're talking about Rufus, that's what I'm picturing. The person who sees everything.
Right.
They're probably as much of a character in the story as anybody else, but you never see them.
Correct.
And it's a great way, I think, of telling the story.
And nobody, and when you say you never see them, nobody in the book ever sees them. Now, it just so happens that people knew of Rufus. You know, they knew of his past, and they knew of his connection with the Whiskey House and him being a town drunkard. They know of his legacy, but they don't ever see him anywhere.
Right.
But Rufus sees everything.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Debbie. Debbie said the class was amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Debbie. So you mentioned flash fiction,
Right.
which is another way of writing. And that was something else that we talked about, was that everything doesn't have to be a full-fledged, long 100,000-word novel.
Right.
And you decided to go the flash fiction route. What made you choose that style of writing? And then once we talk about that, then maybe what are some things that, if somebody says, well, maybe I should try flash fiction, what are some things they need to keep in mind when writing that?
Well, I'm going to use the analogy of either a strength and conditioning coach or a personal trainer. A personal trainer is going to always tell their client, never waste a rep. You know, whether you're doing cardio, hit, or resistance training, weights. So I use flash fiction as my repetitions in order to spin myself up into being a full-fledged fiction writer or being able to add fiction writing to my repertoire. So in the early 2010s, it sounds strange saying that. In the early 2010s, what I noticed on a couple of my fan pages and groups on Facebook, I would just put out a teaser. I'd write a paragraph of a real quick fiction story. One thing about flash fiction is that it doesn't have to be very nuanced. You just lace it heavily with action, and people focus on the action.
Right.
And so it went from weekly to daily. And I started writing and started adding these characters. And one day, and all the supporters like, oh, you need to turn this into a series. One day, in one installment of the flash fiction, it just so happens that I said, well, I'm going to send my detective to a grocery store and he's going to get kidnapped by this guy. And then I said, okay, where can he take him and it sound or feel realistic? Because they live in a country town. They're going out to the woods. Mm-hmm. An abandoned whiskey house. I just thought of that off the top of my head. And then to add a little more context to it, this whiskey house, now I added this context when I decided to actually make a full-fledged fiction novel out of it. This whiskey house was a pass-through place for the Buffalo Soldiers who were en route to training. Mm. And the character in the book, well, one of the main characters in Curse of the Whiskey House, which is the first installment, his name is Reverend Jackson Jones. His grandmother, Lula Mae Girther Jones, yes, I'm talking about the South, had a moonshine house. The Buffalo Soldiers were coming through there fictitiously, and they wanted a nip, and she provided them the nip. But she not only serviced the Buffalo Soldiers, but anybody who wanted a nip. So at any rate, that's what it evolved into. But once I started using that phrase whiskey house, all of the readers and supporters are like, man, that has a ring to it. And so what I want to warn all of my flash fiction aspirants about is the fact that, okay, my method initially, I had so much flash fiction, I said, I can combine these and just make a book. Well, that thought is good, but
it's just good in theory.
Put a bunch of flash fiction installments together and magically you have a book that makes sense. It does not work that way. I mean, you got to have transitions and you have to abide by, the timeline or the chronology of it, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, wow, I've got all the meat and stuff in there, but I've got to make this stuff make sense. I have to tie it together. And so that was a lesson learned. Writing flash fiction is great training because one thing that the readers can say about this entire series, it is action-packed. Mm-hmm. It's full of unpredictable twists and turns. Oftentimes you end up in a place you never thought you would go.
Yes.
You see some things, whether it's in Curse of the Whiskey House, Viral Transgressions, or Ghost of Ace Honeycutt, you see some things you never, ever thought you would see upon you cracking open the covers. So that aspect or trait earmarks the Whiskey House trilogy. So that, I guess, that speaks volumes because those aspects or that aspect would not have been recognized had it not been for the element of flash fiction. But the struggle was for the very first book, making it make sense by tying it by see, when you write flash fiction, you don't really have to be disciplined. You just tell a crazy story. You just you just tell the wildest story that you could possibly tell.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about, you're not writing long enough to try to satisfy the five senses.
That
Right.
makes sense.
You're not writing long enough to try to satisfy a timeline or to make sure all the elements are lining up. Right. So for somebody like me who was transitioning from poet, spoken word artist to a fiction writer, that was a cold slap in the face once I started putting my manuscript together. However, I'm glad I had that experience. So when I put the subsequent books together,
Mm-hmm.
I knew that okay, I know that this element of surprise, which was orchestrated by flash fiction, this is going to earmark. This is going to be one of the main traits or attributes for this entire series. But the manner in which I compose it is going to be different for Viral Transgressions as well as Ghost of Ace Honeycutt. So, but flash fiction got my readers' attention.
Right.
It just took me a while to get everything together, but I was just hell bent, pardon my expression. I was just hell bent on getting it done and not giving up. But it definitely got the reader's attention. And if you're a poet, you're a wordsmith. I can
Right.
string some words together like a politician. But again, when you're releasing not a novel, but an entire series, it has to make sense from a chronological standpoint.
Yep.
It has to make sense. Even if your plot has all types of twists and turns, it still has to make sense. You can't waste a word. Every word that you write, every chapter that you put down has to drive that plot. And the thing
Mm-hmm.
is, it's almost like DJing a party. You don't want to peak too early, because if you peak too early, the only thing you're going to do is come down. But when you're writing, especially a fiction thriller, start out with bits and pieces of action, and then you just keep going up. You just keep that trajectory going up, and you want to make sure your climax is a climax. I mean, you want to go oops upside the head with that climax.
There you go.
But again, you can have that approach, but in the end, the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. And it's going to be hit or miss. And you just have to have that faith and that confidence in your ability that you're giving your readers your best. And you're also showing what I want to show my readers, and what I tell my mentees is that don't just focus on doing a book. Don't just focus on completing a trilogy. Don't just focus on being an author, a touring author.
Right.
Focus on being the best writer that you can be. Focus on improving your brand and your product, and let the byproducts be the books. Let the byproducts be the touring and things of that nature. But don't half step in writing. Don't miss out on an opportunity. And like I said, don't waste a rep, as the trainer would say.
I absolutely agree with everything that you said. I was telling the people in my class this past week
Mhm.
that people, number one, people will meet your work long before they ever meet you. And if they're meeting your work, they're going to make a certain assumptions about you.
Right, right,
And then the other part is there are people who are learning to read and learning to write by reading our work. And you
right.
never know who is learning the English language or who is learning how to write by reading our work. And if we're not putting our heart into it, if
Mhm.
we're not putting our all into it, then we can be doing a disservice. And
Right.
then number three, there are the people who have worked all day and they spent good money to read a book, and they may
Right.
spend good money to read our books. And if we just threw something together because we wanted to hurry up and have and be able to say we had 5 books or that
Mhm.
we're a 5-time published author,
Right.
and we're not putting the work and the love into that book, then we're doing that person a disservice who spent their money on our book, who wanted to read our book so they can escape reality for a little while. And then we just gave them just anything just to say we had a book.
Right. Right. That is, I think initially a lot of I think the mindset of a lot of first time authors initially is let me get my book out there. But once you get seasoned, I you know, I've been blessed and like yourself, have been blessed to tour the country and to see and feel and hear different things from different established authors, meeting with various book clubs, and just learning different things, even from like random readers.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but one thing that I've had to get a grasp of is the fact that the industry itself is ever changing. And not only do you have to, not only should one focus on being a better writer, but you have to be disciplined to learn the industry, learn how it evolves, understand the trends, and understand the main points of contact you should get to know in the various arenas of the business. Because again, you becoming a publisher or an independent publisher or self-publisher, that's one thing, or even an author who has a traditional book deal, that's one thing. But
Mm-hmm.
understanding the business itself is a whole different ball game. And I remember I was going right in the middle of my career. Well, what I consider the middle of my career, I was rubbing elbows with a lot of folks who were quitting their day jobs
Mm-hmm.
and just pursuing this writing thing full time. And I would tell them, I was like, hey, you know, you got to do it. You have to do what you feel you need to do for your situation. I'm not quitting my day job. And and so you know, I got some funny looks, some weird feels whenever I mentioned that. But again, I wasn't trying to place anybody in any type of category who did decide to walk away from their job and pursue this thing full time. I just knew it wouldn't have been the best situation for me.
Right,
And
right.
so I tell folks all the time, do not get taken by some of these folks who say, oh, you go to that job and oh, your boss gets on your nerves and blah, 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 blah,
And
blah.
I don't have to worry about that because I work for myself.
Right. And I told a person who was like who epitomized that. I said, listen, stop assuming that everybody is experiencing the same thing, because everybody's not experiencing the same thing. And some people get I don't get offended because your words are not going to make me get a job or quit my job. But
Right.
my thing is, if you're trying to gain support, you may offend somebody by saying that, you know. But my thing is, if you really want to see for yourself, just get out there on the road. Get out there on the road. I watched a podcast, listen to a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where this amateur rapper did not realize how costly it is to go on tour.
Mm.
Mind you, the type of deal that they signed, well, he's still amateur. It was stated that you make most of your money on the road with the different shows, unless you sign like some sort of 360 deal or whatever. But he said that as soon as you hit the road, it's almost like a meter running in a cab.
Mm.
Everything costs. And so to all my new authors out there, or aspiring authors, listen, take time, develop a business plan. And there are so many resources out there on the internet that offer templates that you can apply to your situation.
Absolutely.
One thing that you're going to realize is no two authors have the same situation. I don't care if you're two self-published authors, you grew up in the same house, in the same neighborhood, still different situations. And every technique that a successful author uses may or may not work for the next author. But I will say that one thing that makes authors that are on the come up, one thing that makes authors on the come up dangerous is when they show the public that they are not giving up, when they are not quitting, no matter how lopsided the odds may be. If you show that you are not quitting, the level of respect that you will have amongst readers, amongst book clubs, amongst critics is going to just continue. It's going to continuously climb. But the thing is, I mean, you have to immerse yourself in this. Like Eric B said, hey, Tashia, how you doing? Like my man Rakim said, when I'm writing, I'm trapped in between the lines. I don't stop until I finish the rhyme. Something of that nature, right? And so, it just has to be one of my favorite rappers of all time. But he said, when I'm writing, I'm trapped in between the lines, which means he's immersing himself in his craft. And my thing is, the 2020s have proven, and my boy Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, one of my favorite athletes and motivators, had a very cryptic quote. He said, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is assuming that they have time. Do not assume that. Listen, okay, it's not a sprint. Yes, it's a marathon, but you got to hurry up and start the marathon.
Right.
Don't keep saying what's a marathon. No, it's not a marathon for you if you have not registered for the race and you've made it to the starting line. It's not a marathon. It's nothing yet. You got to start that marathon. But my thing is, don't get into it half-baked. Do your research. Research, the writing styles, research the different genres that you plan on publishing, but also research the business. Read up on the different trends, and also talk to somebody who became published in the late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, or whatever, and let them tell you how the game has evolved.
Because I'm never going to forget that time when we went to that bookstore thinking we were going to do a book signing, and the people didn't know we were coming. Right. We stood there just looking at each other.
I have had embarrassment after embarrassment. I remember we were on the Divine Nine literary
tour.
I'm going to name the city. I'm just not going to name a store. I think we were we were either in DC or Baltimore.
It was in Baltimore. That's the one I'm talking about.
Okay. And so that experience we had in Baltimore, I understand why there were a lot of, I met a lot of, over the years, I've met a lot of authors who I thought, man, they seem bitter for some reason. But then when I started getting out on the road and having these experiences, I understand why. But the question that everybody has to ask themselves, number one, how bad do you want it? Because whenever you decide that you're going to try to do something, the first thing that the universe is going to say, okay, I'm going to see how bad you want it. Oh, you're going to stop cursing? Okay, well, this car is going to cut you off in traffic 15 seconds later. Like that's just how the universe works. But this is the analogy that I like to use, because you know how you experience some things, but it's hard for the next person to understand until they experience the same thing. So I look at it like this. Once you decide that you're going to do something, the universe has this headwind in front of you, and it's going to throw obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. But if you show that you're persistent and consistent, eventually that headwind is going to get to your side. And if you keep grinding, it's going to get behind you and push you. And then you realize that, hey, this thing is a process. The process is everything. It's not about the finished product. It's the process and the journey. That's everything. and you can't, like Michael Jordan said, don't cheat the game. So anybody who's aspiring to get into this literary game, this literary business, do not cheat the game. Do your research on writing, do your research on the business, and immerse yourself in it.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, Lacy, we went over time, but I could not stop your thought because this is something that every new author needs to know. So I thank you for sharing that tonight. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And my bad for not respecting the time. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I did not intentionally disrespect the time.
It is okay. This was some good talking. It was something that needed to be said. So it is all good. Look, Larita said this was good. She needed to hear that too. So thank you so much for being on the show. Right. Thank you for your friendship over the years and for your support over the years. Right. And you know, if you need me, I'm here for you as well. So thank you for that. Can you remind everybody how they can get the Whiskey House trilogy?
MarcLacy.com. Go to the product center, Amazon.com. I've got ebooks. I got the trade paperback. And eventually the book will be available digitally and physically where all books are sold. I'm working on that now. And I can do a whole workshop on that process, but for another time.
All right now. Okay, well, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed the conversation. Best wishes to you. Congratulations on your book launch. Do you have any appearances coming up that anybody should know about?
I do have some appearances, but I do not have my calendar in front of me, so I don't want to misquote anything. But I've got some book clubs that I am going to do some online book discussions with, and a few prospective in person as well. But I'll have more precise information on that in the near future.
Sounds like a plan. So follow Mark on social media, on Instagram as well as Facebook, to get information about these upcoming appearances, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, all right. All right. Thanks so much once again. You have a wonderful evening, and God bless you and all that you do.
Thank you, and God bless you likewise.
Thank you. So that is another episode of the Horizons Author Lounge. That's a wrap for tonight, y'all, but we will be back next week with we will be back next week with 2 more authors, and it's going to be a time. So make sure that you're here. Actually, I take that back. You will not see me next week. Next week is Labor Day, so I will be on a family vacation next week, but I'll be back the following Monday with 2 more authors. So if you can't get enough of the Horizons Author Lounge, you can always go to the Meet the World Image Solutions Facebook and YouTube pages, and you can look at some of our archive shows, because we have featured some great authors this year, and you need to see these conversations or hear these conversations. You can also go to Podbean and you can download our podcast there as well. If you want more, if you want to see more shows, or if you want to listen to them while you take your walk like I do, go right to Podbean and you can get that information there. So that's all we have for tonight, guys. Hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your week. It's Monday, and if it's anything like me, it was a heck of a Monday. But that's all right, though, because we made it, guys. So I will see you all next week. Bye-bye. Or week after. Bye.